My friends, I'm writing to let you know that whether you like it or not, you're in a war zone. There's an enemy seeking to destroy you, and his allies are always coming after you. Believe me when I say the battle requires everything you got. Mental fortitude, physical prowess, and above all else, a prayerful dependence on the King who has faithfully given you everything you need for the spiritual power, knowledge, and understanding it will take for you to prevail. I beg you to continually read His Word. His strategy is perfect. And even though the war has already been won, don't let that knock you off guard and lead you into complacency. There is an urgency to all of this, and we have a commandment to follow. Now, and this is very important, when you're out there, remember you're not fighting against flesh and blood, so don't get sidetracked or pulled into useless sparring matches. Stay the course. Since we fight differently than others, we'll be treated differently. Keep your eyes and ears open because we're being fired on from all directions. Be on the lookout, especially for spiritual and mental attacks. The enemy's ammunition is deceit, doubt, and fear, and it's launched strategically in the things we see, hear, and read. He is a wicked influencer, and he moves people to hurl vicious attacks on us, and he'll do everything he can to destroy the foundation of our faith and blind us so we don't help others. Stay bold. Stay true. Remain sober-minded. Hold closely the authentic word so you can spot the counterfeit immediately and demolish it. Don't fall for age-old tricks or sleight-of-hand misdirection. It's all fake and empty. Stand firm on the King's foundation. Go the distance. Fight the good fight. I know it's not easy, but now is not the time to run and hide. It's time to proclaim the truth and live by it. It's time to be ready and willing to boldly run forward with the gospel of peace as your inspiration. In one hand, you hold the impenetrable shield of faith, and in the other, the sword. Strike down arguments, ideas, and causes against the King. Be wise and make the most of every opportunity. And lastly, my friends, be prepared to answer people who genuinely want to know where your hope comes from in the midst of all this. They're in this war too, but they don't have the hope you do. Try to remember what that was like. Help them. Teach them the way. I wish I could have written about something entirely different. In fact, that's what I started out to do. But instead, my friends, I was compelled to urge you all to contend.
Contend. Last week we started it talking about the reality of Satan and all of his evil forces, and when it comes to that battle, we ended last week's worship service by crying out, help, God, we need your help, because we're in over our heads. We cannot make it without some help. We can't do it on our own. And this is not simply a reality that exists somewhere in the world. It's your reality. It's the reality of your children and mine. It's our reality together. See, this isn't like the conflict happening in Thailand or Syria where you know it's real. There's no question. You believe that that is really happening. It just really doesn't affect your life all that much. And so I may not know everything about you, but I know that we have at least this in common, that none of us here are safe. I have that in common with all of you. I'm not safe, and neither are you, and neither are our kids and grandkids and our jobs. We're not a safe people that's safe from the thing that we're talking about today, Satan and all of his forces of evil. For all of you who saw the Lord of the Rings trilogy, you might remember this, that there was a situation where they had the big war that was happening, of course, but all of the hobbits did not know that there was a war going on. They were oblivious to it, but finally, after a while, they began to understand, especially a few of them. And there was a time when they had this moment that happened, and between two of them, they began to realize that not even home, in their very safe kind of community, a place called the Shire, you'll remember, where their homes were even underground, and it was a place that was nice, and music was playing, and people were dancing, and there was food, and the grass is always green in the Shire, and it's always such a wonderful place. They felt like the Shire, their home, was safe. And then they had this moment, and two of them realized that no, not even the Shire is safe, that this war that we're engaged in over here is going to make its way to the Shire, and eventually the Shire is going to be destroyed. Everything we know is going to be destroyed. Everything. We're not safe. And so they had to figure out either we're going to engage the enemy or be destroyed, because there's no way to get away from it. We're not safe. This is such a crucial, monumental thing that all of us need to understand. There is no safe place from the evil that we are talking about and that the Apostle Paul talked about in Ephesians. You're not even safe in the most inner, personal, secluded part in your own mind. The thing that you can hide from your spouse and your mom and dad and everybody else, that very secluded place, you're not even safe, and I'm not even safe in that place. We're not safe from evil in this church. You're not safe while you're singing these songs. You're not safe while you're listening to a wonderful testimony of putting Bibles all over the world. You're not safe in any single moment. You're not safe in your cars. This is an issue that will come to you at any moment, and it is an evil that's real. Sometimes, though, we can begin to feel a little bit safe. My old preaching professor and doctrine professor, he was tough. His name was Dr. James Shields. He's like the General Patton of professors for teaching. And he wore this flat top, and I've shared this before, that when I preached my final message for Dr. Shields, I cut my own hair in a flat top like his. And so at the end of the sermon, as he did everybody, he just critiques you and makes you cry and does that to everybody. And he had me there, and he said, "Brother Chandler, the only thing good about your sermon was your haircut." He was tough. Dr. Shields was telling us, though, about how Satan can get in to anything. He said, now, y'all wouldn't understand this, you boys in college in the mid-90s. He said, here at Hardin-Simmons, he says, while we may not be as laxed as some other universities out there, he goes, you boys have a lot of freedom. You kids have freedoms that we didn't have in college. He said, you know what? He said, I went to Wayland College, not Wayland University, Wayland College in the 1940s. He said in the 1940s, Wayland College had more rules and more black and white hard issues that you had to obey. He said every person in the whole school had a curfew at 7 a.m. He said this was a time when you didn't do anything. You did not get out of line. He said I had more freedom at home than I had when I went to college. Wayland College. And he said we did everything we could to keep the place pure and keep it good. And not only that, but Wayland College is in the middle of Plainview, Texas. Plainview, Texas, he said, 40 miles from the nearest known sin. Plainview, way far away. Put in the bubble, Wayland College and all of their rules and regulations. He says, you know what, though? Satan even got into Wayland College in the 40s. He'll get into anywhere. He said to us, he'll get into your ministry. He'll get into your lives. He'll get into your marriage. He'll make you frustrated and depressed, and he'll hurt you. We're not safe in this room, unfortunately. And this is a battle, y'all, that you have to fight. Now, people can join you. All of us are joining you right now in this moment. But no one here can contend for you. It's your battle to fight and no one else's. You have to engage and contend. And I think that if we're ever going to stand against the devil and contend well, then you first have to realize that, by golly, you're in a fight to begin with. Sometimes you can be in a fight and not even know that you're in one. When I was playing football at Hardin-Simmons, after a practice, we came home, or we came back into the locker room, and we're all changing and getting ready. And I had a friend, and he goes over to another guy, and this other guy just got out of the shower, and he had a towel and rolled it up like this, fast as he could. And man, he just popped the dog out of him, right on the back of the thigh. And this is college, not junior high. And he popped this guy. The guy was humiliated. He was mad. He didn't know what happened. He turns around and this just whelp starts coming up. My friend just laughs, and he turns around, and that guy grabbed a stool and hit him over the head with it. Jumped on him, commenced to whooping his tail, just clowning on him. He was losing. We're all just laughing, and we realize, oh, this is a fight. Help, get the guy off. And we pulled the guy off of him. And at the end, my friend is just kind of dazed, and we get out, and we look at him, and I say, why didn't you fight back? And he said, Ross, it all happened so fast, I didn't even realize I was in a fight until it was over. He's losing. He's getting beat, and he doesn't even know he's in a fight. Have you been struggling emotionally? Have you been struggling mentally? I wonder, has it occurred to any of you that you just might be in a spiritual battle? And you don't even know that you're in a fight. All you know is that you don't feel the way that you want to feel. But you don't know that you're in a fight about it. All you know is that you just keep struggling with the same thing over and over again, but you don't know that you're in a fight and that it's a spiritual fight. So who do we fight? Forces of evil. What do we fight? The devil's schemes. How do we fight? Do everything. Say it with me. Who do we fight? Forces of evil. What we fight? The devil's schemes. How we fight? Do everything. This is how we fight. And last week we looked at who we fought, and we looked at the forces of evil. So now, what about the devil's schemes? What do y'all know about this stuff? There are hundreds of books on this subject, all kinds of strategies in dealing with temptation. In fact, you can go to any Christian bookstore, almost any of them, and you can see a whole shelf, a whole aisle simply dedicated to spiritual warfare. And the material has a broad range. If you want to go and you want to find something on how to bind Satan, you can. If you want to go and get something on casting out demons, you can get that too. You can go and get a book called Listen to Me, Satan, as if that scares the dog out of him. You listen to me. Come here, I'll grab you by the ear, Satan. Come over here. You can get a book called Bondage Breakers. I've looked over many of them. There's no shortage of information about the devil's schemes, but I think that some of these writers, some of these people get more of their information from the movie The Exorcist than they do the Bible. We must understand, yes, what the devil is capable of. But y'all, it's just as important to understand what the devil is not capable of. And you can't say that he's capable of all of this stuff. He may not be. And at the same time, you have to understand that he's also strong. You have to understand these things. There's a theologian named Dr. Donald Barnhouse, and he said one of Satan's characteristic plans is to give those people who do believe that he exists an entirely wrong concept of what his true nature and character really are. And here's an example. During the medieval ages, they had these things called miracle plays. They were kind of like religious skits, maybe, or like religious pageants where they would act out religious themes. And all of the people in the audience would get excited when one person would find his way onto stage. And it was a guy who would always be dressed in red, and he had had horns on his head and a tail dragging, and he had a pitchfork. And everybody liked it when he would come onto stage because he would sneak up on the hero. He would sneak up on the heroine, and he would poke them in the backside with his pitchfork, and he was always sneaking around doing funny things. And so the people started to believe that the devil was kind of like that. They started to see the devil as kind of a funny, comic kind of character. You see, there have been mixed up ideas about the devil for a long time. We didn't just learn that from Saturday Night Live. Lots of messed up ideas about the devil for ages and ages, from funny, unreal cartoon kind of beings where you run into them and they're just kind of funny. I even saw a Halloween costume for a baby, a 1-year-old baby. You can do this if you want to. You can dress your baby up as a devil. That's cute, right? The devil is a baby, and when he cries all night long, you may want to do that. I don't know. But the thing is that some, in our culture, we tend to draw as a caricature what the devil is on one hand, but then there's another way that we make a mistake about the devil, and that is to paint the devil in a picture that he is an all-powerful God, too, and that you have the God that all of you and I worship and sing to, God, and then you have this other God, and he's the devil. And these two cosmic, powerful gods, they fight one another. You see, the real devil loves both of these ideas because both of them are not true. And he loves both of them. And he wants us to exist and think about the devil in either one of these extremes. Folks, Satan is not. There are some books who depict demonic beings kind of like this, a snarling gargoyle, just hideous. And angels will come in and they're unseen and they smash them with their swords, and then there's a smell of sulfur everywhere. Just a hideous kind of gargoyle. Y'all know what? If that kind of being, if a gigantic, hideous, snarling gargoyle just came bounding into this room, you would flee and run over each other trying to get out of this room. The devil, the real devil, he doesn't want you to run from him. He wants you to run what? Oh, man, to him. That's right. 2 Corinthians 11:14 says this, that Satan masquerades himself as an angel of light. Y'all, the devil is not ugly. The devil is drop-dead gorgeous. And he comes in male and female forms. He comes in the form of money. He comes in the form of selfishness, that you deserve it. Do what you want to do. You deserve this. Don't sacrifice for these other things. He comes in the form of all of these things, and he's so pretty. And Randy Alcorn says this, that demons are not brutish. They're brilliant. And they have these schemes. And this is what Paul wants us to know, that the devil is brilliant with his scheming. And the word scheme in Greek is the word methodia, is the word methods. It's the idea of strategies. Now, if the devil has strategies, methods, methodia about all of you, it means that he has a portfolio on you. He knows all about you. Generations back. He knows every way that your family has fallen and that you have fallen. He has a portfolio on you with these strategies. And the way that he schemes is by giving us, we fall into two overarching kind of things, and there are two errors that we need to correct. And then there are two strategies that we need to talk about. And so the devil's schemes looks like this. There are two set of errors that we have to fight and two strategies that we fight. The two errors that we fall into and two overarching strategies. So first, here are the errors that we fall into, the two kind of extremes, polar opposites when it comes to the devil. C.S. Lewis, in his book, The Screwtape Letters, a great book, if you're ever looking for an interesting read, The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. He said at the very beginning of that book that people make two mistakes when it comes to the devil. Number one, they take him way too seriously. But the other mistake is this: some people don't take him near seriously enough. Both mistakes. Paul doesn't want any of us to fall into either one of these errors, either one on the either side. He doesn't want us to either overestimate or underestimate the devil's abilities. So first, know this: do not underestimate the devil. Don't fall into that. Paul says our struggle is not flesh and blood. Remember, not only flesh and blood. He uses the word struggle, but it's not the regular word for struggle. This word for struggle that Paul uses here is that you're on the ground and you are in a hand-to-hand kind of battle with the devil. That's different. That's a different kind of struggle. You say, Ross, how is it different? Here's how it's a different struggle. Because if you're in a battle and you have a bow and arrow and you're shooting arrows at somebody, that's a battle, isn't it? If you're in a battle with somebody and you have a sword or maybe a gun and you're shooting or you're wielding a sword at somebody, that's a battle, right? Or maybe you're in a battle with somebody and you're standing up and you're boxing. I mean, fist to fist. I mean, you're going at them and they're going at you. That's a battle, right? But there comes a moment in the fight. The fight comes to this place when you're not standing up, swinging anymore, and when you're not distant with a bow and arrow anymore. The fight comes to this moment when you're on the ground with the person and you're struggling with them with everything that you have, with your hands, and you're biting and you're pulling and you're doing everything, and you're trying to get your thumb and you're trying to stick it in his eye and make it bleed because he's trying to do the same thing to you. And you're biting anything you can, and you're tearing off pieces of flesh. You're struggling. It is on the ground, and it is this hand-to-hand, violent, bloody, yucky kind of conflict. And that's the word for struggle that Paul uses right here. It's not a distant kind of fight. It is a hand-to-hand fight on the ground for life. That's what Paul is getting at with this. And look at Paul's language. He says, powers, authorities, forces. He's trying to show us how formidable our enemy is with these impressive words. He's trying to mount them up one on top of the other, these huge words, trying to tell us, don't underestimate evil. Authorities, forces, powers, don't take the devil too lightly. And y'all, a lot of people are on this side. They hardly believe in the devil at all. They take him so lightly, hardly believe in demons. And a lot of you have felt and lived your life like that, as if the devil is almost non-existent. And that is underestimating and not taking him near seriously enough. But on the other hand, Paul says, also, don't overestimate when it comes to the devil. He says, be strong in the Lord. In other words, don't be scared of him. Be strong. Don't be scared. He says at the very end, when the day comes and you have already put on the full armor of God, you will stand. He doesn't say you might stand. He says you will. Expect success. You're going to stand and do well. And know this about the devil. The devil is not omnipotent, which means all-knowing. He doesn't know everything. Thanks, Josiah. The devil doesn't know everything. God knows everything. He's not omnipotent. Don't treat the devil as if he's omnipotent. Second, the devil is not omnipresent, which is a fancy word for saying you can be everywhere at the same time. The devil cannot be everywhere at the same time. God in his holiness and glory, God can be everywhere at the same time. The devil is a created being, not a creator. The devil cannot be everywhere. When I was a youth minister at Jacksonville, I had a girl who would often pray for us on Wednesday nights before the worship service. And I loved it when she would pray, but something that she would do every single time is she felt it necessary to always bind Satan from our youth Wednesday night worship service. The devil's here. We know it. We feel it. So we bind you, Satan, to get out of here. And finally, I pulled her aside and I said, let's talk about the prayer. And I said, obviously there are evil forces and obviously there are demons, but you pray against the devil every single Wednesday night. She goes, oh yeah, we got to do that. And I said, do you really think that the devil is here with us every single Wednesday night? And she said, yes. And I said, but the devil is not omnipresent. If he's here every single Wednesday night, then how is he tempting the other youth ministries around? I said, the reality is the devil can't be everywhere. He's probably tempting Billy Graham or the Pope or somebody and not messing with our little youth group this evening. He's not omnipresent. Don't treat him as if he was. But yes, the devil is strong. And he's powerful, but he's not omnipresent. Don't treat him like that. Don't ascribe all power to him as if we've lost the fight before we even begin. But you can see how it's easy to fall into one error or the other. One error you call superstition. That's when you make the devil all-powerful, superstition. The other one is called substition, when you don't recognize him at all. And guys, the devils are equally pleased with both errors. They hail both the magician and the materialist with equal delight. They love the people who want to magically go in and say that they're always casting out everything. The spiritual magicians, oh, they love that. And they also love the materialist who says the devil does not exist, demons do not exist either. And in that, let me ask you, why do you think it's destructive and bad to fall into these errors? I'll tell you why. Because they reduce evil. And the key to fighting successfully is you have to have a complex understanding of evil. If you say that the devil is either non-existent or he's all-powerful, then you've reduced and you've actually made all of the spiritual realm very simplistic in a way that you understand it, in a way that's very easy to understand. You've simplified it. And this, you can't simplify this. The way to success is to have a more nuanced view of it, to have a more complex view, that the devil is not simply all-powerful or nothing. He is something else that's complex and dangerous. And there are a lot of Christians today who attribute way too much power to the devil. If they can't find a parking space, they will rebuke the demon of bad parking. Get thee behind me, Satan. I got to find a good parking space. When anything slightly negative occurs, always the devil, until you get to the point where the devil made me do it. When somebody is discouraged or depressed, for some there is this supernatural answer. It's always the devil that's doing it. But for others who under-spiritualize all of this, the devil plays no role at all. The devil plays no role unless they're turning green and their head is turning all the way around. And then they say, oh, the devil's a part of that. But these people fall into all of these errors. And y'all, are any of you here being conformed to these two errors? Stay out of them. They're part of his schemes. But also, here are the strategies that he uses. The devil, in his scheming, uses two strategies, and both of these strategies are a form of lying. Now, the word devil is the word diabolos, and some of you say, oh, I know that. I know diabolos, diabolical. You may not know it as well as you think. The word devil is a noun, but it comes from a verb. And the verb form is the word to lie, to slander, to say things that are totally not true. The devil is a liar. That's what his name means. There's a Christian counselor who said this. He goes, this is how the devil works. You get a piano, and you open up the lid to the piano, and you begin to sing a certain note into it where all of the strings are. And he said, when a certain pitch or a certain note hits one of those strings, this counselor said that particular string will start to vibrate because it's your voice hitting the same note as that string as it starts to vibrate. And he says, that's what the devil does to you. The devil cannot make a good person, bad. The devil makes a flawed person worse. He plays on what you already have inside of you. He plays that. He aggravates what is already in you through lies. And he vibrates those strings that all of us already slightly gravitate toward. And he aggravates those things. That's what he does. That's why, y'all, in Ephesians chapter 4, it says, don't let the sun go down on your anger and your wrath. Don't let the sun go down on that, because you give the devil a foothold. A foothold. You give the devil a chance to aggravate those little strings. Why? Because you're already angry. There's already a string in all of us that lends and gravitates toward anger. So don't give the devil a foothold. Don't let him come in and play you. Don't let him do that. You're giving him a foothold. Don't give him that. And here are two ways that the lies that he tells us, and the ways that he starts to aggravate the strings in our life, here are the two strategies that he uses. One is temptation, but the other one is called, you have temptation and then accusation, and they're very different. Temptation gets you to have too high a view of yourself so that you go and do things you shouldn't. But accusation gets you to have too low a view of yourself so that you go and do things that you shouldn't. And both of them work very, very well. In temptation, the devil is actually hiding from you God's holiness and his righteousness, and he plays up God's love. Oh, you can go do that. God's just going to love you through all of that. No big deal. Go ahead, do that. You see, temptation works just like that. But accusation hides from you God's love, and it plays up God's holiness and his wrath, to where anything you do, he's going to remind you of it. And he's going to talk about how bad you are. He hides God's love and grace, and he only wants you to see God's wrath. But in temptation, he does the opposite. Temptations and accusations are both lies. And the devil wants you to think and act certain ways, and this is what he does. And here's how it works in real life. Here's temptation. He shows you the bait, and he hides the hook. He gets you to look at short-term pleasures, but to ignore long-time destruction. You know that? You know that, don't you? Or he'll get you to see sin as a virtue. That's amazing how he does this. He'll get us to see sin as a virtue. I'm not really greedy. I'm just thrifty. I'm not really nosy. I'm just concerned. I'm not really an alcoholic. I'm just social. I don't stir up drama. I don't stir up problems. I just bring up issues that need to be brought up. Tempting. He'll tempt by showing you the sins of Christian leaders so that you say, he did it too. See, nobody can be that pure. He'll do it by overstressing the mercy and grace of God so that you say, do it. God will forgive you. That's his job. He'll do it by making people bitter over suffering. And if any of you struggle with bitterness, you're bitter about something. Here is the most dangerous thing in the world about bitterness. It's this right here. In bitterness, you always justify doing something wrong because you've dealt with a whole lot of bad things. Bitterness. You'll know that that's probably the main reason why powerful men, CEOs of businesses, preachers, powerful, prominent men, it's the reason that they have affairs and that they're not faithful sometimes, is because they constantly say to themselves, nobody knows how hard I work. Nobody knows how I suffer and how I sacrifice and how I wake up at the crack of dawn and I don't get home till late. I deserve this. It's the voice of somebody who's bitter about their life, and this is the kind of sin that it turns into. That's temptation. By showing Christians how many bad people seem to have great lives, and the self-talk thing goes like this: I might as well do it because playing by the rules doesn't pay off. Look at these other people. Or maybe by getting you to compare one part of your life that's going good to another part of your life that may not be going good. And then you say this, look, I am great over here in this area of my life. I'm really doing well. I do good in this area. A mom says, I stayed up extremely late all the time, every time this past year that my daughter or my son needed help in homework or with our projects, and my husband just goes to bed. And I'm the one who is left, and I stay up, and I've done all of these things. I am a great mom. And so it's okay if I'm not perfect in these other areas of my life. Comparing one part of your life to another. Do y'all want to know the extreme version of this? Mafia hitmen. Yeah, they'll say, I'm really good to my mom. Okay, I kill people, but I'm really, really good to my mom. Comparing one area of life to another one, they do. But then there's another strategy the devil uses called accusation, and it's different from temptation. Accusation does this. It causes all of us to look more at our sin than at our Savior. Okay, understand this. Accusation. To look more at your sin than at your Savior. Parenting books will tell you this, that if you give your child one compliment for every one criticism, that your children will grow up hating themselves. And so what you have to do is you have to give your child, for every one criticism, you have to give them 4 or 5 compliments. And all of us are like that, and the reason is because criticisms seem to lodge and wedge themselves into your heart. And one criticism can carry on for like a week. Don't y'all agree? Man, criticisms do that. Somebody could tell you, oh, you've done so well in this, but somebody can say, you're horrible at that. And you're going to remember the horrible remark. At the end, this is how I am. At the end of a sermon, so many people could say, Ross, man, that was great. And then somebody come up and say, it's okay. I remembered that remark. So y'all just write that down. Keep that in mind about me. The compliments don't last as long. And so what we have to do is give people 4 to 5 times as much compliments as we do criticisms. So let's apply that to our spiritual life now. In the same way, for every one look at sin, you need to look 4 or 5 times at the Savior. And He's going to help you in that way. Accusation looks like this: by making Christians obsess over past sins that have done damage that cannot be undone. By making Christians think that the difficulties they experience must be punishments. This wouldn't have happened to me unless God was mad at me. That's why this is happening. By making people think that the inner struggles and feelings that they have, Christians couldn't possibly have. So they say, if I were a real Christian, I wouldn't be having these thoughts and these desires. Let me say something there. You are not the only one in this place that thinks the things you do and feels the things you do. The reason that we're a church and the reason that we're a community is we come together in honesty about all of that and bring it to Jesus Christ. Don't let the liar, come to you and say, you are so bad, I can't believe you're saying that. If people in your church only knew. Do y'all know what? If people in your church in this place knew what you would think, they would hug you and say, thank God somebody else is thinking it too. And thank God there's somebody else that I'm on that feels what I feel. Making people think that their inner struggles or personal struggles is unique to them and that no Christians would do that. It's accusatory. It's an accusation that's a lie. Do y'all recognize any of these? He's playing you. He knows what strings you have, and he just vibrates them. He's vibrating them. That's the devil's schemes. And if you think for a single moment that you can just sashay through this life on your own and by your good works make it in the end and do really well, you are so mistaken that because you are in a fight and you don't even know it and you're struggling. It's time that we wake up to the struggle and we understand what the devil does and what it looks like, and we start to fight him the way that Jesus Christ did. And so next week, we'll look at what it means to resist sin. Resist him the way that Jesus Christ does in Matthew 4 and in Luke chapter 4. And I want you to come next week so that we can act the way Jesus acts and defeat and resist sin.